can.
Will you make Ariel a co-host?
We're
so
going
she
to
can
need
share?
to, Ariel, just so you know, we're having some difficulties on the live stream, so we will be recording this and then posting it onto the page. I am gonna make who do you want me to make the co-host so that you can present? Do you want that to be Soil and Water or Mount Carmel Room 2?
You can make it Soil and Water.
All right,
Thank you, Lillian.
you're welcome. The meeting is being recorded.
Good. Well, first of all, apologies for last month. It was a crazy time up here, and actually one of our farmers had just tested positive for COVID, and I had been with him a lot. So I just thought it'd be best not to show up to the meeting. So here we are. Yeah, if we can look back at last week's meeting, or last month's meeting, that's our, well, I guess I should call the meeting officially to order. Yes. And does anyone have any conflict of interest today in anything we're going to talk about? Okay. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat page. And we'll be watching chat to make sure we answer anything that you're not able to answer or ask in person. This is recorded, and members of the public are also able to see this meeting. So if we could take a look at last month's minutes, and does anybody have any comments about the minutes? Okay, so can I have a motion, please, to approve last month's minutes?
I move to
I'll make
approve
a
last meeting's minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
second.
I'll second. Bob, Bob will second.
Okay, thank you. If does anyone not approve, we'll do the negative. Okay, then let's pass. Okay, let's, because I certainly am not familiar with all of you. It would really help me that when you spoke, that you said who you were first, just so that we get used to people's names and voices, even though mine is starting to sound like a frog. So, okay, so.
Yes. 1 minute, sorry. I appreciate that and agree, because we have Marika who's new taking minutes. So please, when you vote or you second or whatever, say your name, please.
Yes.
And then we also need, I think we skipped approval of the agenda. So we can pop back to approval of the agenda too.
Thank you for keeping me honest there, Ariel. We have an agenda in front of us for today. Do I have a motion to accept this agenda?
Motion to this is David Tuck, motion to accept.
Thank you. Second?
This is Bob. I just want to ask if it's possible to do the vote on the project first. I'm in Charleston and I'm engaged in something else, but I'm eating breakfast at a restaurant right now. So if that's possible, then I could get out of the meeting after that vote.
Yeah, we can, we have to adopt the agenda first, but we can adopt a revised agenda to put the evaluation top if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay, is a second to that with the update? A second to approving the agenda?
Stag seconds.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I guess Bob already did. Okay, okay, so the only thing we're gonna do is we're gonna move the vote up to the beginning to accommodate Bob Gale, and then we will go forward with the regular agenda. Any other comments? Okay, then the agenda for today is approved. Oh, that's right, I should have done that first. Okay, all right, is there anybody from the public online or with us that has any comment?
No.
Okay, thank you, Ariel. All right, then Ariel, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, well, we can go straight into item 7 on the agenda. with discussion, evaluations, and decision. So I sent out all the evaluation tallies, as well as the
No idea
past.
what you said.
What was that?
Stag, your microphone's on. Was that comment for us?
No, I'm sorry. I thought it was off.
Okay.
All good. Okay, sweet. So, yes, so you have received the email tallies. You've seen an Excel also in that email showing you kind of how the projects rank. I will share my screen to show that, just in case you need a refresher on terms of how they ranked. All right, so we have North McDarris. We use this standard evaluation system. It scored an 82.8. That is a good score. Our typical good scores for projects range from about a 70 to a 95. I don't think we've ever got to 100. And so I just want to make sure you kind of have that info before you discuss the projects. And then same with Pinnacle Knob Slopes. We use the farmland preservation system as the board voted to use, last year for farmland projects. This project scored a 66, which is a good score, even though, we're trained to think that out of 100, that doesn't sound that good, but our typical good projects range from 60 to 75. So like I said in the email, you can't compare this score with the attached Excel on that email because it isn't the same. We compared it to the farmland preservation waiting list, so that you'd have some kind of a understanding of what a good score would be for a farmland project. I know we had really successful farm visits, I'm programmed to farm, site visits. On both of those properties, we had Stag and Bob and Nancy Edgerton joining, and so now I'm going to turn it over to those board members. So if they want to share anything on on those site visits, and then we can have open discussion amongst the board to kind of decide how they want to proceed.
Okay, good. So it was Stag, Nancy, and Bob, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Bob, how about since your time, go ahead. What are your comments, if any?
They're 100% positive. The land is beautiful. It qualifies. There are some pretty neat plants there that I enjoyed, and the scenic, everything about it. I just totally give it completely my support.
Okay, good. Stag?
Same thing, and both the landowners, I compliment them for the job they're already doing on stewardship and also in working with their neighbors, which in both cases there have been problems they've worked through, but they're doing I think the best they can, and really the leverage and the beauty of the place and the fact that it joins land, to me, just says they're both a go.
Great. Nancy, do you have anything to add, please?
Yes, totally agreed. They both have high, beautiful ridges, important water. They're just great projects.
Good. Okay. I have two questions. What is the extent of down trees still sitting on the property from the storm?
Pretty minimal from what we saw.
Okay, good.
I think the good news is particularly McNair's Ridge was on the protected side. And I think much of that North Turkey Creek, again, did not get the winds that southeast facing slopes dot. So I did not see much in the way downfall.
That is terrific. Okay. All right. The other question I had is Nancy mentioned the water. There's water on both properties, I know, but is there anything that looking forward in terms of heavy storms, do we have to worry about, water damage, water intrusion? I'm learning the words.
North McDarris Ridge had a new water issue during the storm. Exposed rock, a rock face, which is a beautiful rock face, And she's had a lot of work done to clean it up, and she's been doing a lot of it herself.
Wow.
And I think that they have it under control. I mean, you never know with a
I
hurricane,
know,
but
yeah.
she's taken care of the issues that came during Helene.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you for those observations. Does anybody else have any comments about either of these two properties? Any question about the scoring?
Nancy, this is David Tuck. The only comment that I have is on the farmland preservation project.
Yes,
I was concerned because the landowner may be leasing out land, and there's no permanent buffer requirement or anything like that for the stream. But I still feel very comfortable with the project, even knowing that there could be clearing by grazing animals all the way up to the stream bank. Usually you want to fence those
yeah,
out.
yeah.
But from what I could gather from our last meeting, there weren't provisions for that. That was the only thing that made me feel a little like, but it's still the good is much, much greater than that concern. So, but I just wanted to voice that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if I,
Nancy,
yeah, go Ariel.
on, I can't remember, we're on the, I don't know if we're on Pinnacle right now, but on the McDarris Ridge, just one little comment, when we were walking through the forest, on I think it was an old logging road. It was pretty grown over, and I mentioned this to Ariel, that asked about, there's a little bit of beginning erosion, on that road, and the sooner they kind of address that, the better it will be, because it'll prevent it from ever becoming a big deep gully, that kind of thing. But that was my only minor comment on that project.
Okay, and if you've mentioned this to Ariel, then I think we've got it in the right hands.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the thing about farm animals getting into the stream, is that something that is gonna be worked out with the landowner after we do the easement?
Jess, can you remind me, there were no cows on the property, were there?
There are
On
no
Pinnacle
cows.
Knoll?
Right, there are no cows. They have had pigs from time to time, but they're obviously minutely contained, not roaming the property.
Okay, so there's a low chance of access to the riparian area in the water.
And there's also typically a provision in the easement language that mentions
Yeah.
NRCS conservation plans, and to follow that and keep that updated. And NRCS will always recommend that piece. But yes, you are right, David. I don't believe, Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, there is anything specifically requiring them to have a buffer. It would be a recommendation and a best management practice, but
Yeah, let me just clarify. In North Carolina, you cannot record a prescriptive easement. We can restrict what can be done, and we can retain rights, but we cannot say what must be done on land management through an easement. That's just not legally possible.
Okay.
And so some of the ways that we nudge landowners in the right direction is, like Ariel said, all easements, all agricultural easements will require conservation plans. Conservation plans will list best management practices. And there's continuing conversation around that all the time, anytime there are cattle or other animals that might be in streams. But we legally can't require it through an easement. That's not something that this tool can do. But again, yeah, on this property, there are no cattle, there are no livestock of any kind at the moment, but there have historically been contained hogs.
And Jess, even if there is cattle in the future, because you had mentioned it was leased, you guys are monitoring these projects every year, so you're going to notice if there's a problem. and
Yeah.
you'll be able to talk to the landowners and address it. And especially sounds like there's a lot of provisions for ways that they can address any problem that you guys see down the road. So
Right. And
yeah.
and also if a landowner changes production type like that, like if they added cattle and hadn't had cattle before, they would have to update their conservation plan to include best management practices for that new production
Oh,
style.
great. Okay. That's
Good.
good to know.
That's good to know. Any other questions or comments on either of the two properties? Okay. Ariel, I think it's time to take a vote.
Sounds good.
Okay. All
If
right.
you'll vote on, do 2 separate votes for each project. that'd be great.
Yes, of course, yes. So let's first look at Pinnacle Slopes. Do I have a motion to accept the Pinnacle Slope negotiated contract as stated?
I'll make the motion. Yes, Bob Gale.
Thank you, Bob Gale. Okay, second?
Nancy,
Aye.
second.
Thank you, Nancy. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please
Well,
say aye.
Aye.
Actually, point of clarification, accepting means that we give a positive recommendation to the county commissioners, is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, you recommend this project to commissioners, and then we take it to commissioners for their official approval and funding.
Okay, good. That was my understanding. I just wanted clarification since I'm
Thanks,
a
Dag.
newbie, so to speak.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Raise hand. Yep,
Aye, Bob Gale says aye, obviously.
okay. Any no's? Okay, that motion passes. We have accepted the Pinnacle Slopes project.
Woohoo.
Okay. Comment?
The
No
comment was
comment,
just yay,
just
yay.
a woo-hoo.
Oh, okay, it was a woo-hoo. Okay, North McDerris Ridge. Okay, that's the next one. If I could have a motion to accept North McDerris Ridge.
I move that we accept North McDerris Ridge.
Thanks, Dag.
I'll second it, Bob.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Okay, then if we can please, does anyone, let's just vote. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 And any no's? Okay, good. Both of them pass.
All
And,
right.
yes, and so Ariel, we would like both of these to, oh, Michelle, that's very nice. Oh, goodness. I don't know how to do that, so thank you, Nancy and Michelle. We should have some woo-hoos. Yeah, so we want both of these to go to the commissioners and we want both of these approved. That's wonderful news.
Absolutely. We will work on getting them on the agenda and work with Michelle and Jess on presentation stuff.
Excellent. Okay. Bob Gale, if you need to leave, adios. Otherwise, you can hang out, you know?
Okay, do you really need a quorum for anything else, or are you okay?
We have a quorum without you if you need to head out. We totally understand.
Okay, so I'm irrelevant. Good.
You are not irrelevant, Bob. That's not what it says.
Bob is never irrelevant.
I'm kidding. It's good to see you all, and congratulations on the projects, and good luck for the rest of your meeting. I'll look for the minutes.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Okay, bye-bye all.
Okay, Ariel, I would like to move on to the updates from the land conservation agencies. Is that correct?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, so let's start with the land trust updates. Let's hear from Southern App first.
Yeah, thanks. We haven't had any new closings in the county since our last meeting. Unfortunately, the Berea tract, the now called the Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy Preserve, Bull Creek Preserve at Warren Wilson College, will be closing this week, which is exciting. That's another part of the Warren Wilson conservation easements. And when I prepared our presentation, that closing was intended to be on the 12th. And so I think I might have put some things in past tense, but still coming. And I think that is it from SHC.
Okay, thank you. I saw Tom. Tom, are you there? Tom Fanslow?
I'm here.
Hi, anything from Carolina, Conserve Carolina?
Yeah, we're finishing up our easement with Kyle Harris there off of Morgan Hill Road in the Broad River watershed, and I look forward to presenting to you two great projects in that same watershed in Broad River Township, asking for more money for more conservation at the Light Center, and then right across the road, so two bookends, the another great project. So we're looking forward on Duck Branch. So we're looking forward to presenting those to you next month.
Okay, good. Okay, Tom, thank you. Anybody here from Riverlink?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Okay, Ariel, back to you.
All right. We are, plugging along. We have, yesterday we had our Agricultural Advisory Board meeting and presented 7 projects for their, over the last 2 months, we've been doing the project approval process for 7 new projects for our farmland preservation program to start working on. And so these will all be the agricultural growth zone funded projects. So that's funded with state funds mixed with 25% of the bond funds. And the board, our Ag Advisory Board, voted to approve all 7 of those projects. So we'll be working to start the agricultural growth zone applications, as well as bringing those projects to the commissioners along with these 2 projects at the same time.
Okay.
And so very exciting on that. We have a large amount of those projects are within the Newfound community out in Leicester. And then we have 1 in Alexander and 1 out in Fairview.
Good.
So
are those projects that you can share the names of those projects with this board?
yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can just send us a list. I mean, I'm certainly interested in what they're doing. And that would be great to see what else is heading to the commissioners.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. We can share the PowerPoint we presented and a list of, that.
Okay,
For
good.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'll
anything
keep-
else on?
That's all I have. I'll keep it brief since we want to make sure we have enough time for our 2 presentations.
Right, okay. So any questions for Ariel at this point? Stag?
Did I miss the Hawk Creek headwaters or that?
No, we're just
This-
starting. We're going into that.
Oh, okay. I got lost on somehow. I thought we'd had an update on Warren Wilson and then I got lost on where we were on the agenda.
I'll help clarify that, Stag. Yeah, Warren Wilson's a confusing mix because we're also working to close, in addition to the easements that we are presenting here, we're closing on a purchase of 190 acres that we haven't sought any funding from this board for that, but it was an update that will be coming soon. That closing is coming soon, but it is confusing because there's so much happening out there on land protection.
Okay, good.
Okay, so let's go into our new presentations. And who's going to go first?
Oops, sorry. Wrong one.
It looks like me.
You get
Okay,
to go.
all
'Cause I
right.
made a mistake.
Okay, great. Do you want to, maximize that? So I'm going to be talking about the Haw Creek Headwaters conservation easement, and you can just go to the next slide. This is just a reminder of all of our geographic focus areas, and this property is located in our Black Mountains focus area, actually in the Asheville city limits. And go to the next slide. So an overview of the property, you can see the contextual map on the right. So the property is 63 acres. It's located in Haw Creek on the upper elevations of Haw Creek, just below the ridge line. And it is a bargain purchase of a conservation easement from the owners, Terry and Christine Latonich. So I organized these according to the LCAB kind of criteria. So for scenic viewshed, which is one of the primary conservation values here, this property is pretty much what you're looking at when you're at the Haw Creek Valley overlook on the Blue Ridge Parkway. If you look to the right, it is in your primary viewshed there. Also within Haw Creek, there are two City of Asheville parks, Masters Park and Charlie Bullman Park. And the property is also highly visible from both of those parks. It has a very interesting historical tie to the Sondley House, which is on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's just a quarter-mile south of that property. I put a lot of information in the application, but basically Forster Sondley built that house in 1903, and he was a preeminent attorney representing George Vanderbilt when the Biltmore Estate was being built. Has a number of other interesting facts about him, and he was one of the people that created the Buncombe County Historic Commission. As for recreation, there are hiking trails on the property that are very frequently used by the local community. There is actually sort of a side trail connection directly to the Blue Ridge Parkway and connecting to the Mountains to Sea Trail. And if you start down at Masters Park in Haw Creek, you can hike through Masters Park, connect to the Mountains to Sea Trail, and then go up to the Haw Creek overlook on the parkway where you're looking at this property. And it can be part of SAHC's outings program. So there are multiple different ways that this property can be tied for public recreation. You can go to the next slide. This picture just shows the visibility of the property from the Blue Ridge Parkway. The darker the orange, the more visible. So almost the entire property is highly visible from the parkway, as I mentioned. You can go to the next slide. So for natural areas protection, SAHC has, in our prioritization planning internally, we've created priority zones, and this one is in our, what we call the Blue Ridge Parkway to Left Fork and North Fork priority zone. It is directly adjacent to the parkway, as you can see on the aerial map. It's also in the Audubon Society's Bull Creek Important Bird Area. It has a slightly above average climate resilience rating from the Nature Conservancy's model. And it is, part of a wildlife corridor that's adjacent to that ridge line that rises just above it. As far as water quality, there are 6 streams segments that flow through the property, including the main stem of Haw Creek. And 2 of those streams are headwater streams that originate on the property. So this is a, steep slope property. So protecting this property will prevent stormwater runoff into the residential area directly below it, which, as now we're all in the recovery mode from Hurricane Helene, we know how important that is. And there are riparian buffers along the stream segments within the property. And then I just noted the eligibility criteria for the Buncombe County's grant program, and it checks 3 of the 4 boxes, as you can see there.
Michelle, excuse me. Could people put their microphones on mute? It seems like there's some background noise coming from somewhere.
Thanks, Nancy. And I will notice I did check time sensitive for this project. The landowners are extremely eager to sell this property, and to the point where, they said, like, let us know if you can do this or else we're going to list it. We looked at different options for how to protect the property, whether it be through a conservation easement or SHC's acquisition of the land. And we settled on a conservation easement. They intend to sell the property after the conservation easement closes. That will enable them to get some cash from the sale of the property, as well as cash from a bargain sale of the easement, but they do not want to continue owning and managing the property. And also, you can see on this aerial map, they are going to reserve one home site, and we've identified 2 possible locations. The one on the left side is basically chosen because of the easy access through an existing sort of like driveway access. The one on the right side was presented by SHC as an alternative because it is slightly less visible from the Blue Ridge Parkway on that side. It's also a lot closer to the parkway and that little sort of kind of access area. So like if I were building a house there, I probably would not want to be so physically close to the parkway because people might be walking there. So we're still negotiating where that one home site might be located. And you can see also on this map, there's a little pink star, and that's where the Sondley house is. That's just south of the property. You can go to the next slide. This just shows how it lays on the landscape above the residential area, just below that ridge line. You can go to the next slide. I think I just have some photos here. This is the Haw Creek Valley overlook, and really just behind the sign is where the property is located. And then I have another photo that shows that a little bit better on the next slide. So that's also from the Haw Creek Valley overlook. And the property extends from the right side of the map, and this less visible from the parkway is where it's obstructed from those trees there in the foreground. And it's basically sandwiched in between where you can see houses above, you can see houses below, and this property runs along the length of this photograph in the middle. That's Haw Creek right there. And that's the Blue Ridge Parkway, a little sort of area for a couple of cars to park. And that cut in those logs goes right into the property. It's not a sanctioned, hiking access like from the National Park Service, but there it is. And then I've got the finances here. So we've estimated the full market value of the property to be about $1.1 million. This is based on an assumption that it would appraise for $18,000 an acre. It could be more than that. And then we estimated the conservation easement to be about 60% of that. So rounded that to $680,000. Negotiated a purchase price of $400,000 from the landowners. And we are asking Buncombe County to provide half of that. And we are preparing a request to private donors, Brad and Shelley Standback, for the other half. For transaction costs, we are requesting, out of what we estimate to be $81,000 in transaction costs, $54,000 from Buncombe County. And then the remaining funds that the county funds will not cover, we're requesting to the same private donors. So this amounts to 33% of the project budget coming from Buncombe County, leveraging 67% through match, the matching funds being the private donor and the landowner's donation. So I mentioned for the considerations, one home site reserved in 2 possible locations, the hiking trails on site, and a few minor encroachments that can, I think, be easily managed just because there are some residences that abut the property, and just communicating with the landowners. Right now, the owners have given landowners permission to cut any trees that are pose a threat to the trails. And I think that's the last slide I have. We're expecting this to close in the spring of next year.
Okay, Michelle,
Yes.
can we make sure in the conservation easement that the continued access to the hiking trails, that's, I'm particularly sensitive to that because there's already Conserving Carolina, 200 acres that sit exactly between Pisgah View State Park and Pisgah National Forest, and ultimately could provide connectivity from the park through forest trails up to the Mountains to Sea Trail. But that conservation easement does not require the landowner to provide access. And so right
Mhm.
now that's a potential bottleneck. So here where you have existing trails that are sort of de facto public use, it would be great if, and particularly since this is going to change hands to a different owner, that's part of the conservation requirements.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Stag. Jess mentioned at the beginning of this meeting that conservation easements, the tool, the way they're designed and regulated, we cannot require any action or management of the landowner. The conservation easement, the role of it is to determine what uses are permitted and what uses are prohibited. So the best that we can do to address your concern is to say that access is allowed, but we cannot require the landowner to allow public access. We simply can make sure that it's not prohibited in the conservation easement.
Michelle, this is Nan. Does anyone else have questions for Michelle?
I've got a few.
Mhm.
Okay, Matt.
This is Matt Fusco. What is the current primary access to that property? I see on the GIS, there's Sonley Road or Sonley Drive, and then there's appears to be an easement somewhere off of Upper Sonley to get into the property. Is there a current primary access?
Yeah, it is through those roads in the Sonley Estates, and we're in the middle of our title review. Well, we've just started because we just had this property approved by our board this past weekend. So once we have board approval, that's when we trigger our title work. So, but the current owner is a retired attorney, and he's assured us that there is a deeded right of way to the property. Yeah.
The second question is, did you guys do a steep slope overlay? Does it lie entirely within the steep slope in terms of its current slope, or has that not been evaluated yet?
I have not evaluated that yet, but I'll add that to my list to check into.
I guess for the benefit of the group, based on the PIN number and Buncombe County steep slope calculator, it averages about 42%. So it would be qualified as a steep slope if it meets certain elevations, as long as it's above the 35% range. So, but in some cases, the reason I asked that question is that certain portions of properties, if it averages less than that, would not be impacted. For instance, if you have a lot that's an acre and only a small corner of it is actually designated as steep slopes, and you don't touch that steep slope area, you would not be required to meet the steep slope standards for the areas that are out of it, as long as you don't impact the steep slope. So I think it's a relevant question. That doesn't necessarily mean that we would not vote for it or against, but it's just something that I think is good information to have. And I second what Michelle said. In my experience with conservation easements, you can't really compel somebody to do something that is not fully voluntary. So while it might be nice, I don't think we would want to consider making those recommendations based on something like that. Also, there's a process to go through with the Park Service in order to allow trails to be brought into a system or to allow access. It's long and cumbersome. And so that might kind of further muddy the situation if we're trying to, help these folks protect something, and understanding that it'd be really nice to have that access, but there's a process on both sides to be able to get that done.
Yeah, and I mentioned that cutout area, I think that's a social trail that's not sanctioned by the National Park Service.
Can I just build
Thank you.
on,
This helps educate me as a newbie.
can I just, Matt, were you getting at the fact that if this is a steep slope, high elevation, would fit into the high elevation requirements for the county? Or this is in the city still, this is in the city of Asheville, right? That development could be limited on it? Is that what your point? Were you trying to state, or were you trying to say,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
or were you trying to say more that like with those individual home sites, if they stay out of the steep slopes, then they're going to be fine?
Well, I think it's kind of two-pronged there. I think, some analysis on where those best laying home sites are would inform whatever that final location is. So, yep. Also, yet acknowledging that it is a steep slope area, so it will be somewhat limited in terms of its development capability from the zoning and development standpoint. It seems to be reasonable and fairly conservative in terms of the number that Southern App has put together as far as values go. But that's a consideration, I guess, on our part. I think that it's in a good area. It's interesting that there's development above it and below it. I think that that's something I'll be looking at as I do my review. Not suggesting that it should be used for development, but in consideration of other factors, what is the potential and that kind of thing. Given that we have a limited amount of funding, I try to incorporate that thought process into each project. I also am very aware of land being limited that is developable around. And if there is some ability to do so, I'm not suggesting that we do it, but I'm just saying that, there was one in a park in West Asheville that I voted nay on a few years ago, and simply because that is a prime infill area. And I think as a conservation advisory board, we should consider that development potential as well. Not to say that we want to prevent any green space. We certainly need more of that too. So it's that rub. So that's why I consider that stuff.
Appreciate your thoughtful consideration. And I have 2 points also. The property was originally slated for an expansion of the Sondley Estates subdivision. And the conservation easement, one thing that we can do in the conservation easement is provide, probably will rely on the National Park Service guidelines for home site development to minimize the visibility from the Blue Ridge Parkway. So yeah, we're looking at this, like I said at the beginning, it's primarily protecting viewshed from the Blue Ridge Parkway and Mountains to Sea Trail and preventing steep slope development.
Yeah, and to add to that, I would agree that site closer to the parkway, even though it might seem counterintuitive, is probably going to do more to preserve the viewshed than having a site further out that gets cleared. So I think that's good thinking on SHC's part, where it's close to that easement, and the view from the parkway would be less diminished.
Yeah, I pushed for that with the landowner, and ultimately it's whoever buys the property may or may not build a house at all, although I can't imagine why somebody would buy attractive land that they can't do anything with. So it's one of those, I actually urge people who reserve a conservation easement to allow one home to be built so that somebody won't try in the future to eliminate the conservation easement entirely, which could threaten, it would be a dangerous precedent for conservation easements as a tool in general.
Question related to the viewshed. If I understood the pictures right, this already has development on like all 4 sides. In other words, it's already far from pristine viewshed, I guess is another way to answer the question. Is that correct?
There's development below that's pretty significant, that's a little bit less visible from the parkway because it's lower down. There's some development above that I think is more less densely developed above hand. So yeah, it is sort of an undeveloped wildlife corridor viewshed strip that has some development above and below it. It's a little bit different than what SAHC generally does. And I think it's the adjacency to the parkway and having 63 acres in the city of Asheville limits to be able to preserve is a little bit unusual.
Michelle, I had one other question. With the conservation easements, you have allowable uses and restricted uses. Do you guys look at because Sonley, I think that neighborhood has some pretty large houses, if I remember correctly. Do you guys ever put restrictions on the size of the structures that can be built?
So it's interesting because we've just updated our conservation easement template, and in the old template we did. In the new template, we're a little bit more flexible, and part of the reason for that is to ease the burden of enforcement on our stewardship staff. So we create a building envelope within which they can build a home. And outside which you can't do any construction, but it's become more burdensome than the benefit to impose square footage limit on the houses.
So instead of the size of the house, you put an envelope where they can't grade or disturb beyond?
That's right.
Okay. Do you have that? Is it based on a size, like it's 2 acres in size or 3 acre? Is it possible for you to show that within those buildable sites, how big the building envelope might be? That might be helpful for people to see that it's really not that big, or it is bigger than people imagine.
On that aerial map, I showed what's basically like a 4-acre cross-hatched area. So that would be the building envelope. And so that just is within there, you can build one home. And then we would include the parkways guidelines for minimizing visibility.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Like roof
so the
design.
envelope is that 4-acre area.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Nancy. I got knocked off and I'm back again. So where did we go from here, Michelle?
Well, next we will work with Michelle and Jess to schedule a site visit, or actually just Michelle, because we've already been to Warren Wilson. And we'll follow up with the board members to get that on your calendars. But in terms of time, if we're okay to move to the Warren Wilson presentation, because I know I don't want to lose everybody. I want to make sure we have enough time. Does that work for everybody to pivot to Warren Wilson?
Yes. For me,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you, let's see, thank you for pulling that up. All right.
Great picture.
Pardon?
I said that's a great picture.
Isn't it lovely?
Gorgeous.
So this board has seen most of these slides before. So just to clarify, this board has approved and commissioners have approved a little around $300,000 for the transaction costs on these through the traditional LCAB coffers. And now we're requesting bond funding towards the purchase price of these easements. And what I mentioned earlier today is to the northwest, you can see a little bit of the pink in the tax parcel. That is the Berea tract, which is going to be the 190-acre Bull Creek Preserve that SHC is purchasing outright, that this board is not funding in any way. So the red are the 600 acres of conservation easements in 4 separate easements. We have now applied, we have submitted many grant proposals, 4 grant proposals to our state funding source, the Ag Development and Trust Fund through North Carolina Department of Agriculture, 4 through federal funding sources, that's USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Service funding through a regional conservation partnership program. Those grants have been approved. The state grants, because the state budget has not yet been finalized, The state funding has not been approved. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on, but this really marks these projects sort of tick all the boxes. It's got adjacency, it's massive, incredible soils. North SHC did in 2018 did a GIS modeling to identify the top priorities. We did 2 separate models, one for what we call our mountain land model and one for farmland. And farmland took into consideration things like the important soils that would be eligible for NRCS funding. And I don't know that we've ever seen one qualify in both models as top priority. So it really ticks all the boxes. Let's see, the view, it's got incredible views, as you saw from that photo. There are lots of, there are publicly maintained roads that go through here. There's some visibility from the Blue Ridge Parkway as well. And the campus allows public access. There's riddled with hiking trails throughout the easement areas. You see the anticipated closing isn't until 2027. And the reason for that is those grant sources. Those tend to be very slow moving agencies. And so even though we're coming to you now, we are still waiting on agency funding, and the agency review process is slow as well. So this map kind of breaks out a little bit more where those separate easement areas are. And as a reminder, the reason we did 4 easements, the design of 4 easements, was so that the board of Warren Wilson College would have comfort in knowing that they would have marketable assets still. One 600-acre easement would really extremely limit a potential buyer pool. But in 4 easements, if the college ever became insolvent or became close to bankruptcy and was sort of compelled to sell these assets, they would have sort of marketable estates that they could sell. They could be intact farm units on their own. Next slide, please. Thank you. This shows the soil content, and in SHC's service area, Buncombe County tends to have some of the highest concentrations of important agricultural soils for agricultural production, but this is just really phenomenal coverage of important soils here. These are some of the views. This is one of my favorite views on campus. This is coming out on Riceville Road, coming up over Daisy Hill and looking down towards the White Barn. This portion of the easement area is called Daisy Hill and Central Pastures. Next slide, please. So water quality, Warren Wilson has already done mitigation easements on 25 acres of land that will be excluded from these easements, but there's still 4 miles of streams that are unprotected through those mitigation easements that will become protected through these agricultural conservation easements. So this is new to you. Since the last time I presented Warren Wilson's, Helene happened, and this is an image of the Swannanoa River on Warren Wilson Road. There's a bridge that's completely covered by the water here, and it was, I live just up the hill from here, and it was the only bridge that we could continue to use to cross the Swannanoa after Helene happened. All the other bridges were wiped out, and I think the reason is that the Swannanoa had room in these floodplains at Warren Wilson to go extremely wide. It got over, I can't remember if it was a quarter or a half mile wide at points. And so the water was moving really slowly, and so it wasn't nearly as devastating as it was in other areas where flow was constricted. So I think Helene just really highlighted the importance of protecting these floodplains and how they can have positive impacts in major flooding events. Next slide, please. So biological significance, there are endangered and species of concern, significantly rare species that have element occurrences here on property. And Wildlands Network, Wildlands Network has provided corridors that they've identified through GIS modeling, demonstrating where species movement will be important to protect. And this is within one of the highest priority corridors. So protecting a large block of land here significantly adds to species migration and movement pattern potential in the future. Next slide. So this is the sort of public access piece. This is a map of all of the trails at Warren Wilson. It's not actually, there are more trails throughout that are not shown on this map, but the dam pasture trails to the northwest will be part of the Bull Creek Preserve, and SHC will maintain those open to the public, but the other trails are part of these easement areas. The river trail right now is pretty well destroyed, but there are plans to rebuild that. And this trail system connects to the Owen Park, Buncombe County Owen Park trail system as well. And many people access the trails through Owen Park. This kind of gets towards some of the college's accolades towards and their innovative stewardship and production methods. I'm not going to read through all of those, but suffice to say they are excellent land managers to be partnering with. Next slide, please. And value added to the project. So there are specialty crop productions. Warren Wilson kind of sees themselves as an innovator there, and that they can be the risk takers to trial different, maybe specific cultivars and crops or specific production methods that then they share with the Western North Carolina agricultural community. We've already touched on public access, historic and cultural value. There is actually a Cherokee archaeological dig site on the Farm Corps easement. Historic marker for Warren Wilson exists on Highway 70 for Farm School, and then there's also a grave of one of the first, I guess, white folks that came over Old Fort Mountain and tried to settle on Jones Mountain, which is one of the easement areas as well. They are enrolled in VAD. Sorry, a little more on that last slide, Ariel. Thanks. They are enrolled in VAD. We tried to get them in the Century Farm program, but as a nonprofit, they weren't eligible. There's an existing forest stewardship plan, and yeah, the leverage is pretty good, even with our increased ask, and we'll get to that in a moment. All right, next slide. Thanks, Ariel. Okay, the funding. So this is where it gets really complicated. We are seeking funding from every potential source in the funding landscape that's available to us. We already have the NRCS funds committed. The ADFP funds are where it gets complicated. So on those state funds, the Jones and Southern Pasture easement block, which is the southernmost one shown in red here, ranked #1 in the state. And because of the way the state tries to allocate funding and spread it across the state, they have 4 areas that they move through. And so they go through and rank everything. But then when they fund things, they fund the top ranking in each of those areas. And so 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the top ranking across the state in those areas, not necessarily just the blanket top ranking. So even though all 4 of these easements clustered very closely together in the ranking, they are #1, and it would be #5, but there was a tie for #1. So there are 2 #1s. So then number 6 and number 10 and number 14. So no matter what happens with the state budget, number 14 is extremely unlikely to be funded through state funds, even though it ranked extremely high. So what we're doing here is asking this board at LCAB's recommendation to consider funding the 3 easements that were not ranked #1. And I've got a slide that'll help break this down a little bit more because I'm a visual person and I would not be following what I'm saying to you. So yeah, so we think that the 396,776, that is just for Jones and Southern Pasture. We think that will get funded. The timing is a little bit questionable because of the state budget not being passed yet. The other 570, 970 that we have requested from ADFP is unlikely, and there's sort of a diminishing returns of likelihood because of that quota system that they use. So we are asking up to 1,054,858 from this board. If NCDA funding comes through on 1 to 2 to 3 of those other easements, we would back down what we actually get out of the county and sort of return funds to the coffer. The private funding has already been committed as for the purchase price as well as for the transaction costs and the LCAB money that this board has already approved. So we've already discussed reserved rights in another one. You've got it in your packet and here in the slides. I won't dig into that tightly, but if we could go to the next slide, I can break down a little bit more that funding seesaw that we're talking about. Okay, so this is showing you the rankings from ADFP. You can see that Tom's project at the Light Center and Jones and Southern Pasture ranked #1. So those,
Woohoo, Buncombe.
yay, Buncombe, yeah, yay, Western North Carolina. Those are pretty much going to get funded, but no matter what happens with the state budget. But then you see that the next one at Warren Wilson is #6, Daisy Hill and Central Pasture, possibly get funded. But then when we get to #10 for Farm Corps, pretty unlikely. There's a $2 million ask at #5 from Working Lands Trust. So it's unlikely that Farm Corps is going to get funded, and almost impossible that Broyles and Dogwood at #13 would get funded.
Jess, can you give the board members an idea for how many total ADFP applications came in this year? I mean, I feel like, do you know? I feel like it was over 100 or something. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a whole lot.
Yeah. So even to get it within the first 13, to get all 4 within the first 13 is like pretty amazing.
Right. And this is kind of the Wild West now with ADFP. There used to be a $500,000 cap on ADFP requests. And so we used to have more ability to anticipate how far down the list we might get. But now with Working Lands being able to request 1,800,000 almost in one project, it's much less predictable how many projects might get funded in any given year.
I think they're going to go back to having a cap. At least
there was a group of land trusts that met and made that recommendation. Actually, we're like, at least a cap of $1 million, because a giant ask really takes down all of the state funding quickly. Okay, next slide, please. So this breaks down what is happening here with our funding request. We had always intended to ask this board in our planning budget. We'd always intended to ask this board for $483,888 for the purchase price on these. But now with the state funding being kind of more in limbo, I'm kind of trying to show you what kind of more solid in black, and then the red is where it gets the seesaw happens. If ADFP funded Daisy Hill and Central Pastures, those funds would not be requested on the right column, but kind of we're sort of planning for the fact that they might not, and requesting those funds in red from the bond funds. So we know at minimum we would be requesting the 483, or I guess I don't know how to phrase this. We're requesting all of it, but the 483,888 is sure to get used. The red is like, we're requesting it. We hope not to have to use all of it, but we would like to be able to move forward with these projects. Otherwise, we're waiting an entire year for another request to the state trust fund, and still not a guarantee that they would get funded because of the sort of Wild West situation we've discussed.
Right.
So if the state came through with funding, though we've requested the funds from the bond, they would sort of be returned for other projects to be obligated to other projects.
Yeah, which is totally fine in terms on the county side of things. I think it would be better, my understanding is that this number is just as requests for today.
Right.
And it could be reduced in the future should state
Exactly.
funding come in. And so in terms of the availability of bond funds, we're getting encouraged to, move forward with projects, get things allocated so that we ensure that we do have bond funds for easement projects. So after talking with Jess, I encouraged her to move forward with asking so that, and the other piece to add is that in terms of bond funding requests for easement purchase, this is also considered kind of like a time sensitive project with some financial insecurity there. So that pushes it forward as well in terms of priority.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. And along those lines, I say we have the federal funding committed. And right now, those funds seem to be moving normally, but I feel like on the federal side, there's so much volatility that we'd rather move quickly and get those funds actually spent, as opposed to waiting an additional year, giving an additional year for federal volatility to become a problem on this project. The faster we can move, the better, I think.
Yeah. And then you also put in the impact that Helene had on Warren Wilson and, extra expenditures there around, that whole side of things. So yeah, there's definitely some kind of time sensitivity there. The other thing to note is that when Jess presented to the commissioners and to LCAB last time for the transaction costs, we did mention that she would be back for easement purchase. So commissioners heard that, and we'll remind them again, when we get to that stage.
This is my last slide, right, Ariel?
Oh, there we go.
A little bond eligibility for you. This is just kind of showing you what bond eligibility boxes we're ticking here. So that was a lot and kind of convoluted. Does anyone have any questions, or can I help clarify any of this?
I've got a few. This is Matt. So I guess on those multiple parcels that'll be conserved, there's contemplation of having exclusions within those areas. Is that correct?
Can you go back, Ariel? There's the slide that has the image of the internal boundaries.
Yep.
That might help. So the only exclusions are already protected areas. So it's a little tricky to talk about exclusions on this because the 1,000 acres of Warren Wilson land holdings are in one pin right now. And so technically anything that's not being encumbered by the easements is an exclusion, and we're not encumbering the core built campus in any way. But within, like sort of inside an easement area, there are no internal exclusions except for the mitigation easements, which are already protected. And those are shown in the white crosshatches. It's a little hard to see at this scale, but sorry, those are the roads I think that you're pointing.
Oh, okay. I see. Here?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
So those, and even with those, some of those are bounding and not internal exclusions, like the one that the pointer's on right now. That's the external boundary then runs with that. And
is the built campus area is excluded?
There's very little that wouldn't work for conservation.
So if one of these tracts needed to be sold, it would be sold as an entirely 100% encumbered piece with the exception of any existing structures or access. Is that correct? Is that
right.
the contemplation, I guess?
Right. So these each of these sort of color areas could not be subdivided again, right. But could be subdivided from each other.
Or built upon, for that matter, it sounds like.
So you can see those the circles inside, and the pink circles are agricultural building envelopes, where buildings for the purpose of agriculture, or in Warren Wilson's case, education and environmental and sort of working lands education could be built. Some of those have existing barns and structures within them already. Some don't. There are no structures whatsoever yet on the yellow unit, Broyles and Dogwood on the north there. The circles with that are yellow with kind of a cross, a hashing through them, those are residential building envelopes. There are no residences on these yet, but in order to make them sort of marketable as estates, they will retain the right to build one residence on each area. And these are large, just so you can see down in the legend, the size of each, the smallest is 96 acres. So one house on a 96-acre lot is a pretty small, pretty low density development rights reserved.
What is the difference between a farmstead and a home site?
I love that question. And it is an important disambiguation that we go through a lot with landowners. So the farmstead areas do not allow a residence. Only one residence allowed. They could build barns within the residential building envelopes, but those are the only ones that allow one residence. The others allow agricultural buildings and infrastructure, but nothing with a residence, nothing that whiffs of residence either, like a barn with an apartment above it.
Cool, that helps me, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions for Jess? Okay. Okay. I got knocked off a couple times, and I know we're running way over. I just have one real quick question that has to do with stewardship. A couple of these projects are using bond money, which means that public access is going to be there.
No. That is, just to clarify, that is not a requirement of the bond funds. They don't have to provide public access. For the passive recreation use of the bond funds, those properties have the public access requirement, but for our easement pot of funds, do not have to require public access.
Excellent. Thanks for clarifying that, Ariel. Okay, that was my question.
And I'll just add to that from the passive land side, which has not been mentioned in this, they're requesting some monies to improve trails and things like that out there. So that's just notable, not particularly directly related to what Jess had presented, but it's just something for the board.
Yeah.
And that has been something that's allowed. One project or one organization can request passive rec and easement from the both boards. So that's like, it's not like they're double dipping. That's totally okay. It's for different uses. So yeah.
Okay.
Whoever's on the phone at 828, you might want to mute. We're getting feedback. Thank you.
Okay, Ariel, I know you want to discuss site visit dates. Do you want to do that right now?
Actually, I have taken that off because we haven't gotten some dates set in stone with the Southern Appalachian folks. So we'll follow up with them and we'll send those out via email. So let's scratch that. And I believe the way we were going to proceed was that we will schedule a visit for the Hall Creek headwaters, but the LCAB board already visited Warren Wilson for their previous request, so we were not going to do another site visit unless that is requested by the board. So we can leave that up to you. I know we have a lot of new board members. If you want to do that again, we can do that again. Let us know feedback on that. Any folks?
I would like to do a site visit there. I've only been out there once for a mushroom hike.
All right. Anybody else? We need to have a couple board members to join, if we have one.
Depending on when it is, I would join.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on when it is, I would join too.
Same.
Okay, sweet. We'll get some dates together. We'll send out maybe like a doodle poll or something to the folks that said they were interested, and try to get that scheduled. Again, and then one last piece of like kind of board business. I know last meeting we mentioned we have 4 positions that are rolling off of the board, and we are in the works of trying to get those filled. They are posted online on the county website, but we are trying to figure out who could be good potential applicants. So the way that works, I can send the link out to the board. You can share it with folks you think would be good LCAB board members. We then collect all the applications from the clerk to the board. I share them with you. You review the applications, and then we have a discussion at a following board meeting. And then LCAB votes to recommend folks to fill those positions. Then the commissioners appoint them. So just a kind of a reminder, be thinking about good LCAB board members. There's no specific board member regional representation or requirements. You know who would be like the type of kind of qualifications that would make a good board member. So yeah, just throwing that out there. Let me know, and I will share the link so that you can share with folks you think are qualified. And as another reminder, I think Nancy got kicked off again, that we, the existing board members that terms have expired can continue to serve until those positions are filled. So, alrighty. And that is all the business we have to discuss. If there's any questions, otherwise, there's Nancy. Perfect.
I'm back again.
Ariel,
Okay,
just real quick, Ariel, this is David Tuck. If you also include me on the site visit schedule, that'd be great. I'll try to see if I can attend something.
Sounds good. I'll send it to all the board, and then should you want to join, we'll do that for sure.
Okay, good.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we done?
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you all for being able to stick around. Our hour meeting has been lengthened a little bit, and that's fine.
Nancy?
And I would anticipate the next couple months it lasting till around 9:30, just for your own like schedules, because we're trying to get a bunch of these projects in.
Yes.
Nancy?
Stay.
Yeah, quick announcement. We're going to have a meeting October 23rd out in Upper Hominy Valley. And I'll send an email out to everybody about that. So the LCAB people are invited. It's principally for people in this valley to understand the conservation efforts, particularly of the land adjoining Pisgah View State Park. SHAC is going to be there with Hani, I think, leading that group. Nancy Nelson's agreed to attend. Ariel's going to be there. Tom of Carolina, Conserving Carolina, like to come. You're welcome to attend also. So it's like meetings Nancy and others have held in other part of the county, but our end of the county has sort of not been very involved in that. So this is trying to just build momentum and get particularly the landowners thinking about conservation, particularly now that we have the state park as the anchor. So more information to follow on that.
Okay, thanks, Stag. Any other announcements or comments? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
I move.
Stag, okay, do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, whoever that was.
Was Lang.
Thanks, Lang. Okay, we're gonna adjourn the meeting and we'll see you all next month. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye, Ariel.
everyone.
Thank you.